Tucker to Weiss to Frederick. Frederick for three. Goal!
The Bo Ryan Show with CBS 58 Sports Director Rock Road and UWM Panthers head coach Bo Ryan.
Good evening and welcome to another half hour of UWM Hoop News and Highlights. We've got another great show for you tonight as we go inside the Panthers basketball program with head coach Bo Ryan. Bo will break down last night's big win against cross-state rival Green Bay as the Panthers made their conference point from downtown to down the Phoenix on the home court. We'll also go one-on-one with UWM freshman and former Vincent star James Wright, who survived the mean streets of the city to make an impact on and off the basketball court. And our special guest tonight on the Bo Ryan Show, team leader Clay Tucker, who played a key role last night helping the Panthers snap a 3-game MCC losing streak. Coach, a huge victory last night. Before we take a look at the highlights, let's talk about how you got it. Talking to Clay before the show tonight, he said what a great week of practice for the Panthers.
Yeah, Rock, I'll tell you, our guys have always practiced hard, but, you know, you always have to make sure that what you're practicing is something that'll equate into something positive happening for the team. And when you have a week to prepare for a team, I think you can get more done. And I think our players realized more so on their own rather than me trying to drive it down their throats. They looked at their own shots on videotape. Our assistant coaches did a great job of editing all their shots that they've taken during the first half of the conference season. And the players that were looking for release points, they're looking for stance, they're looking for hand placement and follow through, and looking to see exactly what a good shot is. So by them evaluating their own shots, I think the light went on in some of their heads. Matter of fact, in all of them, because I think they did a much better job of recognizing good shots and how to get good shots.
And, of course, you needed that victory at home to get off the snide. You had a 3-game losing streak going in. Now you got 2 more home games. This has got to mean a lot to the team.
Well, it does. And the schedule hasn't been exactly in our favor, but, you know, nobody really cares when you're looking at a season. People just want to see what happens as an end result. So we've got to take advantage of the home court right now, get these 2 this week, and it starts with Loyola on Thursday.
Well, as we mentioned, it was a big home win on the court last night. Let's check out some of the highlights in tonight's Panther Rewind. It was a big first half. Panthers taking right to the rivals from the north. Chad Angeli uses his size and quickness inside to score on a 3-point play. UWM led early by 10. The Phoenix having to sag a bit on defense. UWM started to get hot from outside. Jason Frederick launches from way beyond the arc. Right before the break, Panthers led by 8 at halftime. Second half, Green Bay battling back, drew within 4. Former Pius star Chris Sager with 2 of his 12 points right here. But the Panthers responded with a devastating bomb squad, everybody getting involved. Dan Weiss, a perfect 4 for 4 from downtown. The Panthers hit on 8 of 11 from 3-point range after halftime, put the Phoenix away by 22 points last night. Jason Frederick, red hot, led the team with 20 points, drilled 5 of 7 trifectas. With a home win, the Panthers snap a 3-game home skid, as mentioned. Right there, the final score, 79-57. Well, momentum. You don't get a full week to practice up for Wright State coming up this week, and not Wright State, UIC, and you've got Loyola as well on the home court. You don't have the same time frame, but yet you got the momentum from this victory.
Yeah, and we get to stay at home. You know, we don't have to worry about travel plans. We don't have to worry about getting on a bus or getting on a plane, and we have 2 teams coming to our place. Loyola, a double overtime win for us. UIC, a quadruple overtime loss. So it'll be 2 very exciting games, and we're looking forward to preparing for both as much as we can, even though we don't have the same time factor. They don't either. So it'll be something where the home crowd can definitely help make the difference.
Let's talk about what that Klachi Center crowd brings to the team. Obviously, they were rocking. I mean, I remember the Colorado game. It was blowing the roof off at that place.
Yeah, when people get in there and make their voices heard, they can be a factor. And I know it affected Green Bay last night, and that's something that our players also respond to. Anybody would. It's like performing in the theater. The performers perform better, feel better about what they're doing if there's a packed house. So, you know, we're excited about that, and we're excited about the attendance records, and we're just trying to give people something back for what they've given us.
Now, your team did a great job last night, taking it inside, softening up that defense for that outside game. Was that your game plan going in?
Yeah, we needed to attack a little bit better. We need to, as we call it, probe a little more with the ball and try to break people down, try to find weaknesses, creases in the defense. And then when people would help or sink, and then, you know, we did a good job of finding the open player, the open perimeter player. You don't shoot 8 for 11 in the second half because you didn't break the defense down. It just doesn't work that way. And we also got to the free throw line because while we were probing, we forced them to get out of position and foul. You don't get to the free throw line if teams aren't being forced to move and rotate and make good decisions. And we forced them into some bad decisions, and we have to continue to do that.
I guess to the Phoenix credit, Coach Heidemann and company, they made you sweat a little bit. They got within 4 last night.
Yeah, well, they're a very good team, and they've got a program that is very solid, so they're not going to come apart. And they made their push there in the second half. We answered that, and that's a good sign for our guys in that they were able to withstand their flurry and come back with one of our own and then put them away.
All right, as we mentioned, 2 big games coming up this week right at the Klatsche Center. Still ahead on the Bo Ryan Show. He's been sidelined with an injury, but Panther forward James Wright is still on track to keep basketball a way of life. We'll take a special inside look next.
Hi, Coach. Your old friend John Krogman here. Just wondering, developmentally, are you happy with where your young players in particular are at this point in the season? Hi, Coach. Your old friend John Krogman here. Just wondering, developmentally, are you happy with where your young players in particular are at this point in the season?
Well, John, thanks for that question because we tend to forget at times that they are still relatively young. It's still a learning process. They're stepping it up, especially defensively. I really like the way we're helping one another and rallying around each other on penetration and then recovering. So I think that in that area, we definitely have made some strides. Offensively, I think we'll start to show a little bit more here now that we're at home, and I think that'll definitely help being familiar with the rims and the shooting backgrounds, and I think that's going to really help us on both ends.
And we should mention the folks at home who may not know where you know John, association with.
Well, John Krogman is in Platteville, in the city of Platteville. He's been head of the school board. He's an engineering professor there. He's had probably half of the student athletes that I coached at Platteville. He had them in class, made it very, very difficult on them to do anything other than come out of Platteville with the best engineering degree possible, as he calls it. And he has made the trip, him and his family, his parents, just great people, his wife and sons have made just about every game, and that's a 3-hour drive from Platteville. They do it during the week. They've done it on weekends. And very, very strong supporters of what we're doing, and they've really adopted this team, and they give us great support.
And Coach, we should mention that recently announced that the old arena at Platteville is going to be on one of the virtual tours.
Yeah, they just filmed that against Superior last week. Some great shots, from what I understand, of the banners of the national championship pictures and the trophies, and that's kind of neat because it shows some tradition, and also it recognizes that Platteville has had quite a presence in the Division III championship settings, and that's something that all our players should be extremely proud of, and all the students and administrators, everybody at Platteville should be extremely proud of that.
All right, Panthers hopefully will be seeing a title down the road with UWM as well. Tonight we put in our Panther Focus a young man who has elevated his game and helped lift up the team with his first year at UWM. Freshman James Wright made an earlier impact, and of course he was not expected to come back this soon, but he did last night. Happy returns for him. Recently, our Trenny Kuznerek caught up with the former Milwaukee Vincent star and went one-on-one with the guy that possesses the right stuff.
James Wright grew up in North Meadows, a neighborhood that sees its fair share of trouble.
In a neighborhood like that, it's either you were doing good or you were doing bad.
Thanks to his mother and godfather, James knew early on the only way to do the right thing was to keep himself busy enough so he stayed away from doing wrong.
It was drugs and a lot of, gangs and things like that. So, I always occupied my time, and stayed busy to keep me from doing, staying out of trouble.
It helped that he saw what could happen when you didn't.
A couple guys that was actually real good ball players, that I grew up with, they're, either locked away right now or, not with us today, because they decided to go a different route. I kind of pinpoint my life to say, what if I wouldn't have played basketball or I wouldn't have played a sport in general, then what would have happened to me would I be in his shoes?
James was lucky enough to find out what it takes to be successful, so now he comes here to the Boys and Girls Club to teach kids that are just like him how to do the same.
What's up, can I get some love?
James spends at least one night a week at the Lavarn Way Boys and Girls Club, a place he spent a lot of time growing up.
It is giving back, because, they see you doing positive things and somebody's looking, somebody's always watching you.
Most of these kids are growing up the same way James did, surrounded by violence.
If you're in here, I feel it's safe in here. If you're in here, then you're doing something. So you're not in the outside world, and it's more positive kids, and you surround yourself around positive people, then positive things are going to happen.
Just like they did for James. He became a star guard at Vincent High School and now is arguably one of the best freshmen in the MCC. But that doesn't surprise James.
I'm a person that once I got my mind set on something, I'm not going to stop.
And there's a lot of kids who are thankful for that. For the Bo Ryan Show, Trenny Kuznerek, CBS 58 Sports.
Thanks, Trenny. Coach, real testament to the kind of young men you recruit at UWM. I mean, he is a shining example.
Well, when he talks about giving back, it is about that. And he's overcome a lot of things, and the way he came back from this injury is just, the trainers and the doctors say that he's as dedicated as anyone they've ever seen to come back, and he's a determined young man. The only thing we got to do is, if I see him with a lollipop with a stick in his mouth on this, if I'd have seen this before, we'd have had to talk about it. But I've got to remember to talk to him about that. We can't, because one of those kids is going to jump up and hit him right in that stick, and then, remember as a kid, you're always told never to to run around with a
I still did, though,
stick.
Coach. I did, too.
But James didn't seem like he was worried.
Speaking of the healing process, what was this hands-on healing this week with James? I mean, we were expecting another 2 weeks of having James outside of the program, and all of a sudden he's leaping like crazy in the last game.
My theory is with players and teams is I can't worry about what we don't have. I didn't even know he was going to practice the first day he came back to practice. He shows up on the floor, and then he starts to stretch right away, and we start into the drills. The trainer comes up, and I said, now, is James allowed to practice? Yeah. Didn't he tell you? And I said, no, he just came right up and jumped right in, and because the trainer had just made sure that he had it wrapped and around the cast, because he still has the cast on. So, yeah, and he jumped right into practice, and I know with the players, and Clay's here, we can talk to him about that too, but the idea that James being around, he does give an emotional lift. It's a fiery personality, and he backs it up with his action, and we told him before the game, and I don't think I've ever done this to a player, but I told him he does not have to score for us to win. And James didn't even take a shot. But his 15 minutes of defense and rebounding and intimidation and inspiration meant a big part of that game last night. Might not have, you might say, well, what did that have to do with those shots going in? Well, with confidence, it's amazing what you can do. And if individuals and a team collectively gets confidence from the players themselves, they will always be a better team.
Oh, yeah. Our shots were falling, and, of course, the Phoenix were redirecting their shots a little bit because James was there.
Absolutely.
They knew his presence. Still ahead on the Bo Ryan Show, we'll go one-on-one with our special guest who was also glad that he was back in the game, Clay Tucker, right after this timeout.
Hi, Coach Ryan. I just want to know how come you yell so much.
Yeah, Coach.
Well, I'll tell you, I really don't at home. I never really raise my voice. It's, I don't know. Growing up on the East Coast, I think was where I first developed in our neighborhood. Everybody was a little bit more emotionally charged when they spoke to one another. A lot of different nationalities, a lot of different ways of expressing ourselves. And so what we learned at an early age was if you want to get something done or you want to get anywhere, you have to be someone who speaks up. And so I've never been afraid to try to help the officials as much as I possibly can, or to encourage our players as much as I can. And I always tell them, don't worry about the way I say something or how far the vein in my neck sticks out. Just listen to the message. That's the most important thing, because the message usually can help. So that's why I just want to make sure that what we have to say gets heard. And it's kind of a process where we work the officials during the games, too. So trying to get a call down the stretch of the game.
Well, the next young man has been heeding your message and performing rather well. Tonight, our special guest is a guy who's leading the Panthers by example and played a key role last night in helping UWM snap out of that 3-game slump. Sophomore guard Clay Tucker. Clay, thanks for joining us. Does this guy get loud and obnoxious on the sidelines to you guys, huh?
A couple times. It's been a few times he's been loud and obnoxious, especially towards me. For example, Cleveland State game, I missed a rebound that I should have had. And he yelled something, and I knew I should have had the rebound, so I get back in there, mix it up, and grab the next rebound that comes off the rim, which I should have did the first time. And it shouldn't take him to yell at me to do things like that.
But you need a little verbal,
verbal encouragement.
Encouragement, right. Yeah.
Not if you're just a player who's going to go out and play every possession.
There you go.
Well, he shouldn't have to say anything to me for me to go out and do that.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do as a team now. Instead of him yelling at us and the assistant coaches yelling at us, telling us what we should and shouldn't be doing, we should know what we should and shouldn't be doing out there on the floor. And we should be doing the right things. And that's what we're trying to do right now, do the right things to be a better program.
Clay, you were doing a lot of the right things last night against the Phoenix. Let's talk about it. You had a fire in your eye. We talked earlier before the show about having a great week in practice. How'd you guys feel out there on the floor against Green Bay?
We felt real good as a team. We had a great week of practice. We came together as a team, which we didn't do in those 3 losses. And when Green Bay made their run where they got back to within 4 points, we stuck together as a team. We didn't show no mental letdowns or no mental lapses. And that's what got us through that game last night.
And how much did it mean being back in the home court?
It felt good. We was on the road for 3 games. Like I told you when I first came in, it felt good to be back at home, knowing that we had a near sellout crowd last night. And we were at home Thursday and Saturday, so the fans will help us a lot again.
Now, Coach, we were talking about earlier about you playing the inside game, soften them up. Clay, did you kind of sense that was happening early in the game? Because you had some great drives, and all of a sudden you guys were all just popping from downtown.
No, well, that's what we worked on all week in practice. Attack was probably the key word that was said all week in practice was attack, attack, attack. When we got to the middle, we just kicked it out when the defense collapsed. And when they collapsed, we knocked down the open shots.
Now, we talked a couple weeks ago about how you prepare for a game. lights down low, some mellow music, get the ball in your hands, start like pretend like you're shooting it. Now, when we talked about that segment, you were in a little bit of a slump. Have you changed your concept now, or are you pretty much staying consistent?
No, I was always told a shooter never changes anything, his release point or anything. And Coach always gets on me about it. He always asks me how come I don't have a candle lit for boxing out or a candle lit for playing defense on every possession. And the guys give me a lot of hard things about it in the locker room, but I just file it away. So that's something that I do just to relax.
Coach, I get the idea. This guy's a lot of fun to coach.
Absolutely. And, you know, he's right. Sooner or later, when that light goes on in a player's mind and they know what's to be done and everything, there are lapses. There's no such thing. There isn't a perfect game that players play. The thing that we keep working, especially early with recruits, you know, whether or not it's our 10th year in the program or our 2nd year in the program, is to keep filing away the messages, and then sooner or later, you very rarely have to say anything. And Clay is right. And what's starting to happen is there are players who are starting to fit into that mold where they are so disciplined mentally that they know what's coming next. They know that on each possession, this has to happen, that has to happen. And that's when you start to realize when learning is taking place. I mean, it's got to take place within their minds, and they have to trigger the action. And we are getting some young men who are definitely moving into that stage. And as soon as we get everybody there, but in order to get there, they have to like themselves. And they have to, first of all, they like themselves, then they like their teammates. And that's an expression that I used during the week, which finally they figured out what I meant when I told them, I don't like you guys. And nobody asked. Not one player asked, Coach, why don't you like us? And we know you're trying to help us. But finally we got the message across. You don't like people or things that do not appreciate themselves. And I think our players are moving into that stage where players individually can look in a mirror and say, you know, that feeling of pride and self-esteem, and then for their teammates to feel that so that they do things together. And maybe this is the start of something where we've gotten over that hump, and I can't wait till the next game just to see if we can keep it rolling.
Clay, obviously we're not going to light a candle for you, but you guys have been starting to light it up. This momentum coming off this big win against Green Bay, what does that mean for the team?
It means a lot to this team. We went on a 3-game losing streak in the conference, something that we didn't expect that we were going to do this year. And things like that happen. And we have to be smart enough and strong enough to bounce back from things like that. And that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to go into Thursday and Saturday and get these 2 victories at home.
All right, we got the home court. Let's not see any more overtime. Obviously, you had 6 overtime periods collectively between UIC and Loyola. So let's wipe them out in regulation this time.
Hopefully we can.
All right, Clay, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll be back with more of the Bo Ryan Show right after this timeout.
Coach Ryan, I'd like to know what you see as the difference between coaching at Platteville and now coaching at UWM.
Well, there really isn't a difference between the coaching because coaching is teaching, and you're still working with young men who really have a strong desire to be competitive and to be as successful as they can be. The only difference right now here at UWM is that we're starting from basically scratch to rebuild a program and to build it up into something that everybody can take a lot of pride in and rally around. And we started with 100 fans at Platteville in 1984, and when we left, it was packed. And we're going to try to do the same here with trying to have a steady flow of interested spectators, students, fans from the city, fans from other parts of the state, southeast Wisconsin. And we're going to try to give them something to be proud of, and our players are working towards that right now.
But the bottom line is still teaching, and right now you get a chance to coach some of the viewers out. We've got a play queued up, Coach, so let's do the Bo breakdown. This is play number 3. You haven't had really a chance to use this much this season.
Well, no, this is a play that we use a lot against teams that are overplaying a lot on the wings, and it's it starts with an inside screen with the 5 for the 4, and then the 4 setting a back screen for the 3-man coming to the low post. There's the 5 for the 4. The 4 sets a screen for the 3 now as the 3 cuts to the low post on the ball side. And what we're looking for here, when the 5 passes it to the 2, we're looking for this entry on preferably a bounce pass, and we're looking for a 3-point play inside, looking for a bucket, a foul, or possibly the good old-fashioned 3-point play. And it's something that has been good to us at times, but we haven't been getting the hard overplay on the wing as much this year.
Why do you think that is? I mean, have teams just adjusted to your style, or is that just overall across the league?
Well, what they'll do is they will close out in a hurry to our shooters, but they don't mind us passing on the perimeter, and then they'll close out instead of trying to deny the ball from the wing. And it's just a theory that they have, an approach. And I think part of it is because some of our guards can attack a little bit. So if they stretch their defense too much, then we'll be able to probe and attack with our dribble.
Attack and counterattack. That's the key. Yep. All right, we'll be back with more of the Bo Ryan Show right after this timeout. Stick around. Welcome back to the Bo Ryan Show. We're about to wrap it up, Coach. We've got 2 home games this week, and you start off with the Ramblers of Loyola come to the Clotchy Center. Last time you played them at Chicago, went to double overtime, but it was a Panther victory.
Yeah, it was a Panther victory, and thank goodness, because, you know, I received a very, very rare technical foul in the last 5 minutes of the game, and it was something that was totally uncalled for. Of course, I would say that. But, you know, our guys managed to rally around a little adversity and found a way to get it done. And I think Loyola knows that they're just as good as us. It's two even teams going at one another, and hopefully the difference will be us being here at home. We can take care of business in regulation.
And, of course, that game is this week on the 8th at 7 o'clock, and then you follow that up with UIC on the weekend. So back-to-back Clotchy Center rock and roll, and hopefully you won't have 6 overtime periods against these 2 teams like you did on the road.
Well, you know, whatever it takes. I mean, if it ends up being that way, the only, as I said when we played at UIC, the only people that were unhappy, basically, besides the fact that we lost the game, so we weren't particularly happy, but the employees that are paid by the game, they didn't make any extra money with the overtime, so they were a little disappointed.
And I remember when you won at Loyola, the thing you said, because we had the post-game speech, you said, you know, we wanted to go into overtime, test these guys out because we're ready. We're tried and tested in overtime.
Well, that was easy to say afterwards. Isn't that the truth with a lot of things? You know, it's hindsight is 20/20. But our guys have been through this year already, and it's just a little over halfway or 2/3 of the way completed. And I hope that everything that we've experienced is something that they can learn from and file away and use somewhere else down the road where it can get either more positive results or results that will just put us over the hump.
Well, you certainly have given the fans their money's worth, and I'm sure that's going to happen again this Thursday and Saturday night at the Clotchy Center. Good luck, Coach.
Thanks, Rock. We're looking forward to it.
We'll be back with the highlights of those 2 games coming up on the next Bo Ryan Show this coming Sunday right here on CBS 58. For the Coach, I'm Rock Road. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. All right, we'll talk about the business end in just a minute. We'll talk about the next two opponents that will invade the Clutchy Center right after this.